I'm Eva Oh, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the Teakink podcast, and we are here in my robe because it's too cold with Isabella.
Hello.
And I don't want to mispronounce your last name. What's the full name?
Yeah, it's a long one. It's Isabella Sandak-Lewin.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. I won't repeat it. And we found each other in a group chat. I hate WhatsApp group chats, but this worked out clearly. And we were all introducing ourselves. And yours really stood out to me because I guess you were quite hands-on in your approach. A lot of these people were like sex tech people, and that is what you're doing also, but you're actually also from a very physical background. What is the background?
So I'm a bioengineer. I've studied biomedical engineering and biotechnology. I did that in London. I was at King's College and then at Cambridge doing biotech. And yeah, I'm really interested in healthcare. So I work in the NHS as a clinical engineer currently. And I'm also in the femtech innovation sphere, developing a few exciting things that we'll talk about probably on here.
All the things. So where did the intersection of sexuality and science begin for you?
I guess I've always been really interested in connections, and ever since I was young, I've been really fascinated with sex, and I think that it's a beautiful thing. I've never really had a lot of shame. Even when I was younger, I remember I sometimes got sent home from school for just stripping off all of my clothes. One of my taglines is clothes are silly. I think that my younger brother, he literally had no friends visiting the house because I would always be running around the house naked. I'm from South Africa, so I would love, it would always be hot weather and I couldn't wait when I got home from school to just rip my clothes off and run around and jump in the pool.
Oh, what a life.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
nobody mentioned, oh, you shouldn't be naked, or?
Yeah, I think that I often it was always a kind of running joke that's just what I liked. And was
nobody stopped you.
Yeah, no, well, no one stopped me enough. They would, always say, Izzy, put your clothes on. And I'd just be like, no, bye.
Yeah.
And so I guess I've always had, I guess I've since I was young, I've always grown up with little shame.
Why do you think that might be? Just supportive people around? Or?
Yeah, and I think that, honestly, I kind of think I view the world in a, slightly different way to tradition. And I've always just been a bit nonconformist and not really liked following rules or anything like that. And I think just I've had this feeling deep inside of, follow what you want to do. And yeah, I think back to the question, how that links with sexuality and the body and everything and medicine. I feel like those two things are, really linked. I don't think that people think that medicine is really linked with sexuality. I work in the medical sphere at the moment, and I'm working in hospitals.
I think that to my brain, it's how do you disentangle the body from sexuality?
Yeah.
Even within medicine, that is what's happening.
100%.
Oh my God.
It's
that's problematic.
It's really problematic. Oh. And I've been working a lot in the gynae department and gynecology, and we've been seeing lots of patients who have pelvic floor issues after childbirth and prolapse and all of these things.
All the fun stuff.
Exactly. A lot of
they don't
fun
tell you
stuff
about pregnancy.
I'm like, and yeah, I've seen so many patients. Not physically me, I'm a clinical engineer, so I don't, but I've been observing them. And not once is orgasms or anything to do with sexual health mentioned. It's like, it's absolutely crazy to me. And I went to a doctor the other day who I was shadowing, and I said to her, like, how come this is never mentioned? Because surely all of these issues are affecting your ability to orgasm. And, that's a really important thing in your life. And immediately she was just, she was just like, no, it's not relevant. Turned around and went to get another patient in the room. And it was, I didn't even feel comfortable asking her any more than that. But it just goes to show you how in our society, medicine and sexuality is completely, it's not thought of as, it's not prioritized.
I mean, the physicality of ourselves is half of the puzzle of pleasure, no?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
When did you first see that instance sort of happening? Or did you not realize it yourself when you first started studying?
I think that when I was studying, I wasn't really thinking about it. And to be honest, a lot of my studies was like hardcore engineering, like maths and physics. There were lots of points where I was like, why am I doing this? But I think the first time I realized that was with this product that I'm developing, I took it through an accelerated program. There was about like 10 of us on this group. It was a like 0.1% acceptance rate. Really, really amazing getting in there. And I was so excited to take this idea that I had for the sex toy and to take it through. And what the accelerated program promised is, lots of advice from investors and how to pitch a product, help with some of the tech development. And, I got onto this accelerated program, and I remember having to go speak to investors about my product. And every single person that I spoke to, every single one of them gave me this advice. And they said, focus on a medical problem because this isn't important. And I think that's when I first realized that, our pleasure is really not prioritized. It's not seen as something that is important. And I'll just add that the sex toy is specifically for women, and to help women understand their bodies and to help women figure out how to use their bodies to orgasm and have amazing sex and take that into their relationships.
With themselves also.
Yeah.
So if they didn't want to hear that, what did they want to hear instead? That these people cannot function and therefore this would help them, or?
I think that they wanted to hear, as in the investors.
Yeah, like the advice that they gave you. What's the medical problem?
So they would say focus on, some kind of medical issue. For example, if you're having infections, which is another product that I am working on. But it's, just sex isn't seen as a priority.
Or a woman's orgasm isn't seen as a priority. I think if the men's orgasm was not coming to the fore, that would be seen as a focus.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
You've got when I was at school in sex ed, we were taught about how a man orgasms. We were never taught about how a female orgasms. In hospitals, even a man can go to a hospital and say, okay, I have erectile dysfunction. There's a categorized problem and there's a solution. You can take some pills. That just doesn't exist for women. And I think that's because there haven't been enough women represented in the world to actually say, okay, I think this is a problem and this is important and we should focus on this. And I think that with the sex toy that I'm trying to develop, that's ultimately, a really big goal is I want to show that pleasure is important and prioritize it.
And it just shows a glaring discrepancy between a male orgasm versus a female orgasm. And just like, why does that have a classification enough to have a solution? And how do people think about it? I guess then it's very much tied in like the psychology of they can't get hard, right? Or is it tied to anything else? Like they can't ejaculate or like what is the difference, do you think? Apart from the fact that the obvious stuff, I guess. Nobody cares.
I think, the difference is that I think that historically, there's always been a research bias towards the male orgasm. It's always been in heterosexual sex. It's like the primary goal, and the female orgasm is just secondary. I think that women have in all spheres of life. I mean, I'm a scientist. I work in medicine. Like how women have been underrepresented in that field, for example, we've been left out of clinical trials. Up until 20 years ago, we were not included in clinical trials for all the drugs that we take today.
And I only just found out why. But can you clarify as to why that is? From what I know, it's because the hormonal changes throughout a month make the potential outcomes too varied, right? And so they would rather test with a consistent sort of like hormonal like state, and therefore you're going to go with the folks who don't have estrogen coursing through them to try to make it easier for a result to be consistent when actually it's completely irrelevant for 50+% of the population.
100%.
Because you didn't test for it.
100%.
So your numbers are pretty.
It's absolute bullshit.
And lazy, actually.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100% right.
Laziness.
Laziness,
and not caring. But what is the product that you've been working on that has to do with female pleasure?
So the product that I've been working on, so it's a sex toy, but it's much more than that. So we've got these highly specialized sensors that we're trying to develop at the moment. They've been in development for the past year. And these sensors can map pleasure points with female anatomy. And by mapping those points, we can then be able to recommend different ways that you can reach orgasm. And the idea behind this is to just help women explore their bodies and, orgasm and all the different ways that you can. I think our bodies are like amazing things, and it's been a really fun journey.
What is a pleasure point? Is it, obviously it's quantifiable to you.
I love that word. So a pleasure point would be, for example, your clitoris. My hair on my side.
Your clitoris?
It would be your clitoris. Also inside your vaginal walls, and
will clench.
Exactly.
I've had one of those orgasms before. A few.
There's also anal, although I haven't figured out a way to get that.
To measure that, yeah.
Okay. And we're also considering psychological as well. So of course we all get aroused in different ways. Sometimes for some people that doesn't mean anything and it's purely physical. For others, there's a lot that happens with your mind.
That would have a physiological response anyway, right? Yeah, whether that's temperature or maybe humidity or whatever. I don't know what you call it. Sweat, whatever on the skin. But I guess can you tell us yet where it would be measuring? Like, is it just on one device or do you have to plug yourself into something?
So it's going to be it's a vibrator and then it's connected to an app. So
Okay.
yeah. So it's also
Easy.
easy. It's a sex toy as well. It's like a wearable sex toy. Yeah. It's
Okay.
like a souped
Is it
up vibrator.
hands-free?
It's you've got it at the moment. You've got to use your hands.
Use a hand, or somebody has to use a hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. How far along are we in the testing? And can people be testers?
Do you want to be a tester?
I mean, this sounds fascinating. I would just love to know what those pleasure markers are anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although maybe that's going to be part of your patent.
I can't say any more about that, but
okay.
but yeah, we're in the very fun phase at the moment. So I've roped in a few of my friends who have some reluctantly agreed to try this. I'm like, I've made this vibrate. I mean, literally, this started as just me in my bedroom, literally ordering silicone, making the molds, destroying the kitchen, like.
Do you have photos of this?
Like pink dye.
This is going to be like documentary worthy someday.
I actually do have photos. I should make a documentary. I mean, I got my flatmate to. She was one of the first testers, and this was in the very, very early days. And I was like, right, I just need to understand how you're going to feel if you're like masturbating and you know that there's things like taking physiological measurements of you. So like just go into this room over here and like you've got 10 minutes.
I'm watching.
Like take this toy. I've disinfected it. And I'm going to put like a heart rate monitor on you as well. Okay. And go and do your thing and then just tell me how you feel. And so I literally have had like a couple of friends who have just been doing those sorts of things. And I've also
are you working with like a software engineer also for the app, or
so I've got like a small company that I've
burst
asked to do it with me. I do know how to code, although not enough to develop an entire app. And I've also, I think I'll have to say the testing part has been it's been really interesting. And I've also got a few sex therapists that I'm working with at the same time to just learn about, okay, we're going to give women recommendations, but let's get some practical things. And that's been amazing. I've learned lots of exciting sex techniques myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. I'm very interested to see how this goes. And what are the other things that you're crafting? Because it's not just that, because I don't know where you find the time, but
So another thing I'm working on, which is medical, and I hate to say, I did take the advice of some of the investors who said that I need to make a purely, medical product. So I'm working on a diagnostic device that can help you detect if you're having any kind of gynae infections, or the three most common ones that happen a lot when you're sexually active. So that's bacterial vaginosis, thrush, and UTIs, urinary tract infections, which I struggle with a lot.
So it's to know the difference and then how to treat it?
So firstly, what I'm working on with this product is to have an early diagnostic, because I think oftentimes you have this area of pure panic, where I'm like, okay, something doesn't feel right. What is it? Because I need to know what medicine I need to do.
Pharmacy.
Exactly. And I kind of I want this device, the goal of this device is to be able to detect it just before the symptoms come on, because there's actually there's medications you can take for all three of these conditions, but there's also a lot of lifestyle factors that you can change, like changing the toilet paper you use, the foods you eat. There's lots of small lifestyle changes that you can do, and I want to be able to help women with that. Yeah. I think that. So for me, I've had I mean, I work in hospitals. I've also had lots of visits to hospitals, and I've had lots of times where I've been given like antibiotics, like we were saying earlier. And I've said to doctors, like, please no, this is going to give me thrush. And all of them have just said, no, you're fine. Like, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. And of course it does happen. And this is, another,
It's a fucking cycle.
Yeah. It's another area where it's just like women aren't, like, their pain is not taken seriously either. And it's like, so yeah.
It's interesting. It sounds like another opportunity for it to be an app-based sort of diagnostic.
There's an app with that as well.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's like wearable, or I don't know what you would be calling it, like hardware, physiological like things, but it almost can be one app, right?
Yeah, just like everything for everything for your vagina,
for sexuality.
yeah,
sexuality, reproductive health. Yeah, maybe it's like a whole company.
Yeah,
they can even do like pregnancy. I mean, you have the stuff that's like tracking your cycle, right?
Yes,
it's kind of like a more fun version of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we all have those like the little Fitbit things, and then it's now, I guess it's kind of like
it's
an extension of the Clitbit.
I really want to go with that name. And
please trademark it before I air this.
I know.
I mean, why not, right? If that can also just be the marketing of it.
Absolutely brilliant.
Cute, yes. But I guess so when you were first entering this world of mathematics and physics, and it was just more the interest from that angle, when did the sexuality angle sort of start to appear in such a reoccurring fashion? When you had to specialize, or when you had to like write a specific?
I think that it occurred when I finished uni, and I had a job. I was working at a startup making AI algorithms for medical image diagnostics. And I remember thinking then, it was my first time getting a job, and I was like, okay, I'm working for somebody else. And I did think it was a very interesting field, but it didn't feel very much aligned with me. And I then started to think, okay, how can I take what I'm interested in, which is sexuality, body positivity, and align that with also my skills, which is very much in engineering and that kind of stuff. And then when I started developing this product, and then on the accelerator program, I was like, we had freedom there to kind of leave our ideas and choose new ones, form new partnerships, whatever. I went in there thinking I'm not budging from this. I have like one chance to work on something that I am interested in, that I'm passionate in, that I want to do, and I'm sticking to that. And
This is in the UK?
This is in the UK. This was like 3 years ago. And I was with a bunch of a bunch of people who are working on like fintech and software as a service, and I don't know all of this.
At Cambridge, or was this?
This was after Cambridge, and this was at a venture capital in London.
Okay.
And I was like the one working on this random sex toy. It was very different to the other products that people were working on. But my reason for being so interested and obsessed with sex, I think that goes back to when I was speaking about the shame or the lack of shame that I had growing up. And when I was in my teenage years, I suddenly went from not giving a shit about what anyone thinks, and being very flamboyant and out there, and not having a care in the world, to suddenly being hyper obsessed about my body. I think this was a combination of like just becoming a teenager,
adolescence, yay,
all of that stuff. I mean, what a time!
I don't know if it was good for anybody.
No. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I was a ballet dancer back
that
at
doesn't
that time.
help.
No.
I also was, but I got out early.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got out at about 13 after about 8 years. That was
timing.
the peak of probably hell.
Mhm.
I have the feeling. That was when I was starting to feel the pressure. And they were getting really hardcore.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably around the time, like when I was 14, that I
Yeah.
developed anorexia.
I'm sorry.
And I had ballet teachers who, I remember I just gotten into this really good company, and it was a ballet company, and I was so like proud of myself. I was so happy. I was always I was never a skinny child. I loved my ice cream or whatever. And I had a little bit of baby fat, but nothing crazy. And I remember my first day, and I was 14 years old, in going into this ballet company and having my first ballet class with them. And the first thing the dancing teacher said to me was, "You see that tummy? Girls, we've got to get rid of it."
Using you?
Using me. I know, literally. And I remember I just turned to the only girl who I'd known she was already in the company, but we went to school together, and she's like this tiny, skinny little rake. And I just turned to her, and I just felt so embarrassed. And I had other situations where I would audition for a show.
Yeah. And
then I'd get an email back saying that my legs were too muscly or my shoulders were too broad, very specific things.
Yeah.
And
they think it's good feedback, huh?
Yeah. It's crazy because I feel like people don't, I don't know if they still do say these things nowadays.
They say it less, but every now and then it still does slip out. Yeah. But in certain environments, of course, this is very normal still.
Yeah.
In Asia, very normal.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know why, but I am not too affected by it, even though you hear it as the first thing. It's oh, you got so fat. Whenever you go back, it's it's very much a physical thing. And it's not necessarily a terrible thing always. Mm-hmm. It can also be a good thing, as in you were too skinny before or whatever. Right. It's who knows what people are trying to say. It's just normal.
Yeah.
Them. But I've been into some fashion stuff lately, and it is a lot more polite, but every now and then it's still part of people.
Yeah. Really?
But even though I stopped doing ballet, I was still dancing, and I stopped for maybe 5 years. And then I started doing commercial stuff. And
what kind of dancing did you do?
So ballet growing up, and then I started doing circus stuff. Yeah,
wow.
Hanging from the ceiling and shit.
Oh my gosh.
Clubs in Ibiza, very weird. Anyway, and then I started getting hired for just I was the Grey Goose Girl and shit like this, and then I did this concert with Kylie Minogue, and that was probably the time that I kind of really felt the
pressure.
The thing is, I was skinny, and I was pretty, and I was the thing to measure things by, but they did not let anybody else fucking forget that. And that wasn't cool for me either. I'm okay, yeah, but this is not great.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't want to be singled out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got treated differently, and I got paid differently, and I got different food, and I got handpicked to do extra stuff, and it's just fairness was just really shitty.
Yeah, it's so hard when you're working in...
I wasn't even very good. I was okay, but I was not the best dancer there, Yeah.
Oh.
But anyway, yeah, sorry.
No, it's a really, I think it's really interesting because, of course, as women, you always have so many people looking at your body and, criticizing it or complimenting it. And I have a theory that there's a big difference between men and women. And as a woman, we often, or at least I do, I feel like I sometimes live my life thinking always, okay, what are other people thinking of me. I live my life like knowing that I'm viewed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is a very different experience with men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's totally different.
I was just telling a guest of mine this story, so I won't repeat it in great detail, but I do this exercise with my clients when I first start to spend a lot of time with them. Of course, some of them I see for an hour here and there, but some of them want to like dedicate their whole fucking lives to me. And in those cases, I really need to educate them. Otherwise, they're fucking unbearable. You know, they don't see your perspective. They don't see anything outside their little world. And so I do this exercise where they walk behind me for like 15 minutes, like minimum. They're not supposed to come up to me. And they're supposed to just watch how people react to me. Because that's not how people react to them. You know, people are like staring. People might try to like get in my attention. They might just stop and like look. They might say something. It's as an exercise to make them start to understand that even walking down the same street, it's not the same for you and I. Yeah. Totally. So try to start keeping that in mind. And maybe then when you get that point, you can start to think about how you can really serve me. Because until that point, it's all about you.
Yeah.
And they don't get it.
That's a really interesting exercise. It sounds kind of similar. I had a really good friend of mine. We went to the theater together and he wanted to cross-dress one day. And so I gave him some of my clothes and I actually had a wig that I used to wear to like dress up and stuff. And
was it his first time?
It was his first time. And I was like, maybe don't go with the wig. Like I was really worried for him because I was like, I didn't know how people would react. But he really wanted to do this. And we were just going to see some very civilized show at the theater. And like the main takeaway that he had from that experience, he said that all men need to do this because he was like, he didn't realize how much like he just felt perceived. And he was like,
they look at you differently.
Yeah. He was like blown away.
Yeah. Like they can take something from you.
Yeah.
You know, like they are taking something from you. It's a totally different thing.
And that's also ties into why I feel like, you know, sexuality can also be so powerful for women because if you can control it.
If you can understand it's yours.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have the power and it can be really, really healing.
Yeah.
I think that as well.
When did you realize that?
That I realized, I think when I was, I had a period of anorexia. It was like about 4-5 years. It was almost my teens, which was a shame because I literally just don't remember, like, it's just like, don't remember, you know, kind of anything from it. But when I was coming out of that, in order to heal from that for me, I had to start to learn to love my body, which when I was younger, I loved it. Then I suddenly hated it and just wanted it to disappear. And the healing process for me was loving my body again. And with that came embracing like my sexuality, which...
How did you understand that you needed to do that process?
I think that's... I think that as well as a teenager, I had lots of, you know, had lots of experiences with guys, and you know, I enjoyed exploring and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that when I was a teen, a lot of those experiences, looking back on it, were like, oh, those actually didn't make me feel so good. And you know, I wasn't maybe considered very much in this, and everything was focused on the male and the male orgasming and how does he feel. And I think that I'm just remembering when I was younger, like there was one guy and I was so tight, I literally couldn't have couldn't have sex with the guy. And I remember thinking, oh no, there's something wrong with me. Like I need to and I remember sitting in front of the mirror and being like, okay, I need to try stretch myself so that I can have sex. But obviously I didn't realize you just have to feel comfortable. And I think that when I was growing older, I mean, I'm not that old now, but as I got older, I kind of realized oh, that wasn't a good experience. And I wanted to reclaim it. And I found a lot of power in reclaiming it and
so
owning
it's like
it.
reflection.
Yeah.
And understanding that you wanted a different outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, congrats!
Yeah.
How are the outcomes working for you these days?
Very well. Really, I am in an amazing relationship, and my partner definitely knows that my pleasure is his priority.
Mm-hmm. He's got the pleasure points down.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But actually, this is really funny. This happened just the other morning. We woke up and we had a quickie. Normally in the morning, I'm really tired. But I'm fine, we can go for it. And we had a quickie and he orgasmed and I didn't. Not that I keep track, but
but I did.
But
keep track.
I did. Thanks to Lily Allen.
Okay.
So we have this Alexa and normally it wakes us up in the morning with the news. And I was like, I can't, this is the most awful way to wake up ever. I was like, can we just wake up to a love song? So I said, the night before I said to Alexa, wake me up to a love song. Don't know why I played Lily Allen.
Okay.
And I played this song about how there's this guy, but it's such a shame because, she wants to get to know him, but it's such a shame because he's so bad in bed and he doesn't know how to make her orgasm. And, and we just had this quickie and then Lily Allen starts playing. And suddenly I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I didn't orgasm there. I was like, yeah, exactly. I was like, what the hell? And then my partner said to me, he's like, oh, but it was just because we had 5 minutes and, maybe it would take more time.
Excuses.
And I was like, excuse me. I was like, I have 20 vibrators next to my bed. You can use any of those. And I was like, I can come in 3 seconds if I'm masturbating by myself. You better learn how to do that to me. Anyways, now he's made it his mission to before I get out of bed, he has to make me orgasm 3 times. I'm like,
he's looking at the prototype of your app.
Yeah. But it's important. I really want to smash the idea that the female orgasm is a mystery because I don't think it is. I just think that we haven't placed enough importance on it. And
Agreed. Agreed, for all the reasons that we've detailed. Okay, and how far? It's been a year now since the sex toy plus has been. Okay,
yeah.
And how far along until I can have it in my play space?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. Probably. I would say at least a year and a half if we, at least a year and a half. But watch the space.
Okay. And is there anything that you want from this? I guess it hasn't been that easy. Also, you mentioned that you're the only femtech one to do with sexuality in this accelerator program. How has that been?
So I've actually left that accelerator program.
Okay.
But no, it was amazing, and it really was amazing, and it definitely helped kickstart all of this. And I think that the struggles that I faced when I was there, and I think that it was actually really kind of positive because before I was there, I was just like, oh yeah, of course, everyone knows that this is an important issue, that, female orgasm is really important and, it helps relationships, mental health, so many things. It's just pleasurable and fun. And having that experience, I kind of learned oh no, this is not everyone's priority. And I think that was really important because it kind of fueled, more of my desire of actually bringing this out. It made me even realize how much more important it is.
And how did your peers in that group react to you? I mean, you tell me that a lot of the guidance was to do something medical, right? But did the peers have a similar reaction, or were they just doing their own thing? Or how has your approach to your engineering been, even in school, I guess? Like, has it really stood out? Or
I think so. I've always been very like I was always in like in high school, for example. I was kind of like the only girl in my maths group. I was in like the top maths group. I was the only girl. And when I was in engineering as well, kind of one of the, only females as well. Likewise in the accelerated program, lots of men. And then again in the NHS where I work as a clinical engineer, almost like 98% men in my office. And that's kind of, that's hard. I think that I've never really appreciated up until now how that is actually a little bit difficult in the sense that you just feel a little like different, and there's lots of it's hard to, I guess, in the engineering space there aren't a lot of females that I know that are kind of working in the same space, and that's quite difficult. When I was in this accelerator program, a lot of my peers annoyed me in the sense that it was always just seen of like my product was very much seen of like, not very important, a little bit of a joke, or you're the sex girl, and I think it's definitely in this space, it's definitely something it's definitely a challenge, like saying that like what you're doing is serious. And although I do have to say, I've changed, like over the few months, I've now become a lot more open with what I do, and I actually kind of enjoy seeing the reaction of people's faces when I say, like, this is what I'm up to. I went to meet a professor of mine from undergraduate for a drink the other day. And he asked me what I was up to and everything. And I was like, oh, I'm working on this sex toy to help women explore their bodies. And he was like, oh, wow. Like, he was like, actually, well done to you. And he said, I was a bit shocked at first, but then he said, actually, no, like, well done. That's amazing work. And, I think that it's important to speak about these things. Yeah. Otherwise it just becomes more stigmatized, and actually people's reactions have been kind of positive, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's like some parallels to when I tell people what I do. Yeah. I found it really difficult at first because you're so used to operating within societal, yes, sort of framework, and having people react to you in that normal, welcoming, whatever, we are having a social contract sort of way. And then you throw this spanner in the works, according to them, and suddenly they think about their own sexuality, which is the thing they're hiding from, and they have to be confronted with it, and you are the object of their repression. Yeah,
Wow.
like up on their face. Yeah, I mean, but that's how it is, right? Yeah. It would not be an issue if they were comfortable with themselves and their sexuality. It would be like, oh, curiosity. Yeah. And boundaries also. There's like the flip side of that is that when people hear that I work in sexuality, all of a sudden I hear their deepest, darkest secrets. And it's like, how did we get there? It's like, those are yours. This is not the clock. And I'm not a shrink. It's like the boundaries, the understanding of self is just like, whoa, completely messed up. But I assume it's something similar.
Yeah, definitely. That's really funny that you say it. And people do suddenly just open up to you about like their entire, I mean, I kind of...
don't!
I love it. I'm like, okay, let me therapize you.
I'm not getting paid enough for this.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid $0 for this drink right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no. Yeah. Unless it's like crazy scandalous and I'm incredibly bored. That has also happened, actually. Then it's fun. Yeah. When did you start like mentioning it?
I started mentioning it like, I guess, probably so in my new, like I've just started, well, not just started, I've been with NHS for like 4 or 5 months now. And it took me about a month and before I started saying like, okay, you know, this is what I'm also working on. This is my background and everything. And in terms of, I'm just thinking about my family now. You know, they all knew I was on this accelerator program. Before that, they had, you know, they didn't really know that I was into all of this sexual health stuff. I think I remember telling my dad and he wasn't very shocked. He was like, "Oh yeah, that's perfect for you." And he took me seriously. It was really, I really appreciated that. Yeah. I had difficult experiences as well from, for example, my mom. Like I love my mom, but she said to me, I remember we were at a dinner table and she said, "Can't you just work on something that's actually going to help people, like cancer?" And I was just like,
but you are also doing that.
Yeah,
but anyway.
And that was just, I mean, kind of, yeah, it stung a lot. It really stings. And I think that it's hard. I think that, you know, there's a world of people who are really interested in sex and I think appreciate sex and it's a very big part of their lives. And then there's also other people where it's less important.
They want to hide from.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just about understanding that, you know, there are these differences. I think that also with my product, with the sex toy, I really wanted to reach those people who say that sex is not important to them. And, you know, and maybe that's because of reasons that they have low body confidence or, you know, they haven't had good experiences in relationships. And I really
exist in society.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many reasons. I just did this talk with Bruce LaBruce, who's a director, and I watched his entire feature film catalog. I went a bit crazy over a weekend, but a lot of his work is to do with the orgasm being a site for personal liberation, which is like a philosophical framework for a lot of. He must have some sort of background in philosophy because it's just like. Just slamming it at you all the bloody time. But I forget, you know, the guy who like made the Orgasmatron, what's his name? And a lot of his ideas was about orgasmic energy and however. But he also brings in a lot of Marx. But I think what I kind of walked away from eventually when I could talk after this crazy marathon of watching these films was like, oh, there's actually like an interesting cohesive thread here that I get to experience quite physically, but I've never really thought to vocalize. But it's like, if you are curious and eventually comfortable with your own body, like as your own individual personal site, it kind of can set the tone for how you interact with others and how you live in your life and the amount of control or curiosity that you have. So it's like, because you can't control shit, really, right? But you can explore this physicality of you. And if you kind of bother to do that, what more can life look like? You know, it was kind of what I walked away from with that. And so I feel like, yes, maybe some people say, oh, sexuality is not important to me. And it's like, what have you been hiding from? Like, why are you hiding?
Yeah.
And it's not like you have to be obsessed and we have to go to every fucking sex party and we have to like live in a dungeon or whatever, you know, but the fact that you just want to shut it down says a lot more about where you're at in your relationship to your life and the world than it does about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So you're achieving revolution. And you laugh, but it's a reality, right? Because we're taught to just disengage and from our one sight, the one thing that we're actually given in life, you know? We're taught to just separate ourselves from that, to disassociate so that we don't associate with anything else, so we don't judge it, so that we don't question powers that be. So
Definitely.
it is.
And I think that also that I'm like a big fan of dance therapy. And I think that's
embodiment.
Yeah. And all of that stuff. And there's like amazing book called Body Keeps the Score that that I really recommend and love. And I think that I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I think that it's very important to be in touch with our bodies. I find it crazy that we live in like, I don't know, I think for me, having an office job, I find really difficult to just sit still. And I find it, you know, I love movement and I just love like our physical bodies. And I think that the way we live nowadays, where we just confined to like sitting on a desk and even communicating a lot on screen rather than physically being with other people, I think that, a lot of us are missing out on it.
That's why I refuse to do this online.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I'll fly there eventually. I'm not going to do the podcast on a call. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. No more Zoom. No more pandemic Zoom time for me. Thank you very much. We can get that another podcast. But yeah, after I stopped dancing so often, like, because it was I don't even know how many times a week when it's your work, right? It was weird.
Where were you? Did you say you were doing it in?
I was in China.
Wow.
Yeah, mostly. And then touring Europe every now and then. But mostly in China. So I don't know. It was like 4 times a week. You'd be in a studio or you'd be in a venue or whatever, right? And when I stopped moving and I moved more to production, it was like I was castrated. It felt like I was castrated.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm sure there's all these physiological explanations for why that happens, but it just felt like, and then I had to just take myself to the studio every now and then and just like make no sense and just like flail about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess I eventually found another medium, which might be this.
Yeah.
And then I can kind of do it psychologically as well as a little bit like also with people. But there's just so much that is communicated through our movement and our body and our interactions with other people and our interactions with ourselves that is just like, you're really castrated if you're not connecting with it.
Yeah. And I really struggle like to not be moving and just communicating with others. I think that for me, I communicate best just with my body and with dancing. And
are you still dancing?
Yeah, so I do like, it's a huge passion of mine. And I think that with all my anorexia and stuff, I fell out of love with dancing for a little bit. When I was at Cambridge, I started dancing I started pole dancing.
Do they have a Cambridge club for
it? They did.
Oh, wow, cool.
They did. And I was doing lots of competitions with them. I got kicked off the pole dancing society though.
Why? What happened?
So we would often perform at the May balls, and they'd have these like super big luxurious parties in all the different colleges. And so we had a performance, and I decided that I wanted to strip. And so I did. And I was told off after that by someone in the team. And she said, you know, this is not representative of us. Like, you shouldn't be stripping off. And I don't like getting told what to do. So I was like, excuse me, like, where did pole dancing come from? Yeah. Like, you know, it's, you know, this is actually like where pole dancing came from. Like, you can't you can't.
You want to castrate it also.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just because like you're worried that your boyfriend's going to think you're part of like some slutty society.
Mm-hmm.
So I stripped again the next night. And then I was given the bits.
But do you still dance for yourself?
Yeah. So I've got a little pole in my at home, which I like anytime I'm just feeling a little like anxious or I just need to get in the zone, I just jump on the pole and it's the best therapy for me. And then I also perform like I'm very in touch with the music scene, and I sometimes do performances when my friends are putting on club nights. I sometimes do burlesque shows, and also sometimes do like the whole choreography for club nights and kind of vibe and everything.
My God. Where do you find the time? Is there time?
I unfortunately only operate when I'm like I need to. If I'm not busy, I'm stressed.
Oh, okay.
So
all right. So it's a full-time job at the NHS. Is it full-time?
Yeah, it's full-time.
And then you have like a startup with 2 products at least that I've heard of. I feel like you have 3 products, no?
There's just 2. There's just 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The diagnostic thing, the
diagnostic thing, and the sex toy.
Okay. And then you're like doing choreography and you're dancing and no wonder you're tired waking up to Lily Allen or whatever.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, but it's a full life. That's good.
Yeah. I'm the worst. Like I can't. I don't enjoy sitting still. I mean, I can't watch. My partner's always complaining. He's like, "Can't we just watch a movie?" I'm like,
I'm just gonna do a mold in the kitchen sink and change the world. You go watch your Netflix.
But I do definitely think that I am learning to like calm down a lot more and kind of just prioritize, chill and
why
and all of that stuff. I think that
is it helpful to do that? Some people don't need to.
Yeah,
I think.
I know. I think that it. I had during COVID, I had my stepdad passed away of COVID, and it was like really. It was really traumatic. I was in Cambridge and he was alone in the hospital. Yeah. And again, this, kind of my love and hate for medicine comes into this. Like no one was allowed to go see him. Yeah. And I really think that it, like, I mean, I don't know how you can separate. The government can just say, yeah,
I'm sorry.
You're not allowed to, like.
That was so fucked up.
I mean, it was crazy. But since he died, he was a very like big figure in my life. He actually died yesterday, 3 years ago. But he, like, after he died, I kind of really, like, my personality kind of shifted a lot. It's kind of like, okay, life, this is life. Like, this is your one shot, and, fill your time doing things you love. And so I sometimes put a lot of pressure on myself now that I'm like, every single day has to be exciting and good. And that's also hard, but so that kind of made me kind of give a little less fucks in life, to be honest.
Be tired, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. I took that to an extreme. During COVID, I was separated from my family also. And normally I see them every 3 or 4 months. And being away from them for 2 years, because I couldn't go into Australia where they are.
Yeah, Australia was
locked down.
Hectic. Yeah.
Yeah. And it completely off, like I was off the rails. I didn't realize how off the rails I would get. I mean, I always knew they were special to me, but I went fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I just like, I did everything. I'm not going to say what, but I did all the things until my body just collapsed on me. It just, like, my legs just seized up, and I couldn't walk. I literally couldn't get out of bed. And I was just like, no, we got to keep going. And I'm there like Googling, like, what does this mean? I was like, oh, dehydration. Okay. I'm just like pound the fucking water. And like 48 hours later, I was back on my feet. And that still kind of has a little bit of a thread, actually. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I remember to drink water. And like, when I feel like saying no, I'm like, why? Why are you saying no? Say yes.
Yeah,
say yes.
Say yes. Say yes to everything.
Yeah. It is. It's very good to remember how precious this one little tiny resource is. This one little opportunity.
Yeah. I think that I really admired. I was listening to like the first few podcasts that you did, and I really admired how you transitioned into this role. You were like, I think you were working in strategy or something, and you were just like, nope, not this. And I was like,
I'm not hawking sugar anymore. That's the last thing I did. It was like studying satiation points and psychological motivators for what the choices people are making around food. And so it was like, so it was studying why they would choose coffee and why personalization of that was so important to them, or what exact like time were they going to crave what and why, and what do they reach for. And it was all very interesting. But then I came up with this sugary little fucking bullshit thing. And it was just like, what did I just do? This is what my brain is being used for? Like trapping these people who can't help themselves, you know, with all of this research and all of this beautiful, perfect marketing. It's just like, no, I just can't.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. To fill the pockets, you know, of this, like, the investors. It was, I couldn't look back on a life like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are.
Here you are.
It's great. Really, I'm very happy where I am. Yeah. And the choices that I get to make every day, even if London is bloody expensive.
Yeah. I know.
I'm free-ish. Yeah. Well, did anything sort of come up in our time? I feel like we've probably gone over my usual hour, but was there anything that you'd like to mention before we maybe close for today?
No, nothing that I can
come to mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've applied for the testing subjects phase. And we'll sign my waiver.
It'll be top of my list.
Thank you.
Top of my list.
I will find out what the anal indicators are for you on my clients, if you like. But it might be mixed with fear. You should do it to your clients, actually. But the thing is that when you put yourself in as a variable, they're going to feel a lot of other stuff, right? Yeah. Like probably like fear. I love when they wear the Fitbit and you make them kind of check it.
And see how their heart rate is.
Heart rate always goes up. It's great. It's very simple, but it's just a little thing.
Yeah.
that they also can remember when they're on their next run or whatever less interesting thing that is. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy I read that stupid WhatsApp group.
Oh, no, honestly, thank you so much for having me. Like, I've been such a big fan.
Yes.
So I'm been thrilled to
come back when you're ready to show us a prototype, maybe. Yes. Yeah, maybe we can even do like an episode where we sort of test it or something.
Yeah, we can do a whole like preview of how it works.
I have to put that section on another site, but you know, until that point, we can put it on YouTube. But thank you very much for listening. Speak to you next time.